The morning sun pierced through the immense bay windows of Sandro's penthouse. The 26-year-old man slowly awoke, his eyes resting on the portrait of his deceased mother enthroned on his bedside table. Only 2 months had passed since his rushed return from America for the funeral, and each morning cruelly reminded him of the absence of the woman who had built the oil empire he now headed. Sandro got up and walked towards the panoramic window that offered a breathtaking view of the city. Despite his colossal fortune, estimated at several billions, a deep melancholy inhabited his dark gaze. He had everything: power, wealth, respect. But something essential had been missing from his life since that tragic news received 4 years earlier. Christine. That name still resonated in his head like an unfinished melody. His first and only true love, taken too soon by what his mother had described to him as a tragic childbirth. He closed his eyes, letting the water stream down his face, trying to erase the images that still haunted him. Dressed in a tailor-made suit worth the equivalent of the annual salary of his employees, Sandro descended to the underground garage of his villa. His 3 bodyguards were already waiting for him, motionless like statues in black suits. The Lamborghini Urus, black as ebony and gleaming under the neon lights of the garage, was already purring. Despite all this luxury, Sandro remained disarmingly simple with his employees, a rare quality in men of his rank. "Good morning, Mr. Sandro," respectfully greeted Marcus, his personal chauffeur for years. "We are heading to the city construction sites today." "Yes, Marcus, I need to see the progress of the work. These social housing units represent much more than an investment for me." The car glided silently through the still sleeping streets of the city. Sandro had always had this vision: using his fortune to create decent housing for modest families. It was his way of giving back to the community. A project his mother had always criticized as unprofitable. But since her death, Sandro was free to make his own choices. The contrast was striking. On one side, the glass and steel towers of his financial empire. On the other, these modest houses he was building to offer dignity to underprivileged families. "Slow down, Marcus, I want to examine every detail." The Lamborghini crept along, allowing Sandro to meticulously observe the progress of the constructions. The cinder-block walls were gradually rising. Some houses were already covered, others were only at the foundation stage. He lowered the tinted window to better breathe the air of the construction site. The wind carried scents of dust and concrete. His eyes scrutinized every detail: the quality of the finishes, the alignment of the structures, the safety of the workers who were busy like industrious ants. Suddenly, as the car drove along a row of houses at different stages of construction, something caught his attention. In one of the unfinished structures, where only the walls and part of the roof were completed, a female silhouette was sitting on the steps of the exterior staircase. The distance and the shadow of the walls made the scene blurry. But something in that posture, that way of holding a small bundle against her, made Sandro's heart beat faster. "Marcus, stop," he suddenly ordered in a tense voice. The chauffeur obeyed immediately, parking the car along the dirt road that led to the construction site. Sandro squinted, trying to better make out the silhouette. A woman, visibly exhausted, was holding against her what looked like a swaddled child in worn fabrics. Her hair, dulled by dust and fatigue, partially hid her face, but something in her awakened a familiar echo in Sandro's mind. His heart began to pound. That posture, that way of rocking the child. "Sir, is everything all right?" Marcus worried, seeing his boss frozen, his gaze fixed on the construction. Sandro did not answer immediately. His hands trembled slightly as he continued to observe the scene. The woman seemed to be nursing the child, her gestures imbued with a maternal tenderness that painfully reminded him of the dreams he had once had with Christine. A shiver ran down Sandro's spine. Every fiber of his being screamed that this woman was not a stranger. His legs moved even before his mind made the decision. He opened the Lamborghini's door with a brusque gesture, ignoring the protests of his bodyguards who immediately rushed to follow him. "Stay near the car," he ordered in a firm voice without taking his eyes off the seated silhouette. His Italian shoes tread the beaten earth of the construction site, raising small clouds of dust with each step. The closer he got, the more the details became clear with a terrifying sharpness. His heart was beating so hard that he felt the entire construction site could hear it. 10 feet from the unfinished construction, he stopped dead. The woman's profile had just partially revealed itself when she turned her head towards her child. Her high cheekbones, that delicate nose, that graceful curve of the neck. No, it was impossible. Absolutely impossible. Excuse me, he called out in a choked voice. The woman jumped and instinctively looked up at him. Time seemed to freeze. Only her hazel eyes, which he had loved so much, her eyes that had haunted him for 4 long years, existed. Christine. The name escaped his throat like an incredulous whisper. The young woman instinctively clutched her child against her, her features contorted between stupefaction and terror. Her worn clothes, her messy hair, her skin weathered by the sun and the elements contrasted cruelly with the image he had kept of her. That radiant high school girl in an impeccable uniform he used to meet every morning in front of the gates of their private school. Christine, is that really you? He repeated, approaching further. His legs trembling under the weight of emotion. She instinctively backed up onto the raw concrete steps, her eyes filling with tears she was trying to hold back. The child in her arms, a small boy with curly hair and large curious eyes, watched this man in a suit with fascination. Don't come near me, she stammered in a broken voice. You and your mother, you destroyed my life. These words struck Sandro like so many stab wounds. His mother, what did she mean? He knelt down in the dust, ignoring that his luxury suit was irrevocably getting dirty. Christine, my mother told me you were dead, that you had a miscarriage. I mourned your death for years. Christine's sobs redoubled. 4 years of suffering, solitude, and daily struggle to survive surfaced like a torrent of pain. Dead, she spat with bitterness. Dead for whom? For you who lived in your luxurious universities in America while I slept under bridges with your son? Sandro felt the world collapsing around him. His son, this little boy with features so much like his, was his child. My son, he murmured, his eyes resting on the child who looked at him with innocence. Don't call him that. Christine cried out, tightening her protective embrace. You were never there, never. While your mother threw me out into the street like trash, you were receiving your diplomas in America. The truth began to dawn in Sandro's mind with painful clarity. His mother, the woman he had respected so much, had she lied about Christine's death to permanently drive her away? Christine, listen to me, he pleaded, his hands extended towards her. My mother called me crying. She told me you had lost your life during childbirth. I wanted to return immediately for your funeral, but she told me everything was already organized. I almost dropped out of my studies. I sank into a terrible depression. The construction workers had noticed the scene and began to gather at a respectful distance, intrigued by the presence of their billionaire boss kneeling in the dust in front of this visibly destitute woman. And me, what do you think I went through? Christine yelled, her voice breaking with emotion. Your mother promised me she would take care of me in your absence. She promised me a phone to talk to you. She promised to pay for my medical consultations. Everything was false. Everything. The little boy started crying, scared by the outbursts. Christine instinctively rocked him, her tears falling onto the child's innocent forehead. She left me with nothing when my stepmother threw me out. I gave birth in the street, Sandro. In the street, with the help of a market vendor. Your son was born on a cardboard box, without a doctor, without anything. Every word was a heavy blow for Sandro. The image of the woman he had idolized, his mother, was transforming into a monster of manipulation and cruelty. How could he have been so blind? Sandro remained kneeling, letting the red earth of the construction site irrevocably stain his designer trousers. Christine's revelations crashed down on him like an avalanche, each detail reconstructing a puzzle of horror he had never suspected. Tell me everything, he murmured, his voice barely audible. I need to know. I need to understand what she did to you. Christine angrily wiped away her tears with the back of her hand. Her son had calmed down and was now playing with a piece of torn fabric, unaware of the drama unfolding around him. You want to know? She spat with bitterness. Very well, after you left, your precious mother changed overnight. No more money for my prenatal consultations, no more promises, nothing. When I went to knock on her door, her servants had orders to chase me away like a dog. She paused, observing a group of workers pouring concrete in the distance. The buzzing of the cement mixers punctuated her words with an unrelenting industrial rhythm. My stepmother started calling me all sorts of names when she realized I was pregnant. Tramp, lost girl, societal trash. She said I was going to tarnish the family's reputation by carrying a bastard. At the 6th month, she threw me out with my meager belongings in a plastic bag. Sandro felt nauseous. How could his mother have orchestrated such cruelty? How could she have looked her son in the eyes and lied to him with such conviction? I had to beg Sandro. I had to beg for food, for drink, to survive. My belly was getting bigger and people looked at me with disgust. Some gave me a few coins out of pity, others spat as I passed. Christine painfully stood up, her son in her arms, and walked towards the gaping opening that would one day welcome a window. Her gaze was lost in the distance, where other construction sites stretched as far as the eye could see. The nights were the worst. I slept in abandoned buildings like this one or under the awnings of closed shops in the middle of winter with the cold piercing through my thin clothes. Sometimes, I felt your son move in my belly and I spoke to him. I told him his daddy would be back soon, that it was just a bad patch. Her voice broke again. Sandro wanted to stand up to join her, but she signaled him to keep his distance. At the 8th month, I found work at the Central Market. I washed dishes for makeshift restaurants. I carried bags for wealthy customers. I did everything I was asked despite my condition. The other vendors looked at me with a mixture of pity and contempt. That poor girl, they whispered, abandoned by the one who got her pregnant. Sandro closed his eyes, imagining the woman he loved, pregnant with his child, dragging her heavy belly between the market stalls for a few coins. Meanwhile, he was taking classes in the most prestigious universities in America, dining in Michelin-starred restaurants, living in a luxurious apartment, paid for by his mother. On the day of the delivery, Christine paused, her breathing becoming ragged. I had my first contractions at the market. Ma'am Katie, a vegetable vendor, and her friends took me to the back room. They boiled water, tore clean fabrics. Your son was born on a straw mattress by the light of a kerosene lamp. She tenderly stroked the hair of the child who had fallen asleep against her shoulder. He was so small, so fragile. I named him Emmanuel. God is with us. Because I needed to believe that we were not completely abandoned. Mama Cuddy helped me for the first few days, then I had to fend for myself. Sandro felt burning tears stream down his cheeks. Emmanuel. His son was named Emmanuel and he never knew it. How did you survive with a baby? As best I could. I carried him on my back while I worked. At night, I rocked him in unfinished houses like this one. Sometimes when he cried from hunger and I had no more milk, I would cry with him until exhaustion put us both to sleep. Silence settled, disturbed only by the distant sounds of the construction site and Sandro's muffled sobs. 4 lost years, 4 years where his son had grown up without him, where the woman he loved had endured hell while he thought he was mourning her death. Marcus watched the scene from the car, perplexed. Sandro slowly stood up, his knees marked by the red earth of the construction site. He wiped his tears with the back of his sleeve, trying to regain his composure, but his world had definitely shifted. Christine, my mother died 2 months ago, he announced in a rough voice. That's why I returned from America, a sudden, massive heart attack. For the first time since he had recognized him, Christine fully turned her face towards him. The announcement of the death of the one who had orchestrated her ordeal aroused contradictory feelings in her: relief, bitterness, and a strange sense of emptiness. She died taking her lies with her, Sandro continued. When I returned for the funeral, I went to your stepmother's house to mourn at your grave. That's when I was told she had sold the house and moved. I searched all the cemeteries in the city, Christine, all of them. I was looking for your grave to tell you how much I missed you. Emmanuel stirred in his mother's arms, his tiny hands reaching out to this well-dressed man who spoke with so much emotion. The paternal instinct, dormant for 4 years, brutally awakened in Sandro. May I see him? He timidly asked, extending a trembling hand towards the child. Christine hesitated for a long time. The anger, distrust, and accumulated suffering struggled against what she felt upon finding the man she had loved so much. Finally, she approached a few steps, allowing Sandro to better see his son's face. The child undeniably had his father's features, the same face shape, the same timid smile. Sandro delicately reached out his hand towards Emmanuel's little cheek, who immediately grasped it with his tiny fingers. My son, he whispered, his voice breaking. My little Emmanuel. Christine watched this first encounter between father and son with a mixture of tenderness and pain. How many times had she imagined this moment during difficult nights? How many times had she dreamed that Sandro would miraculously appear to save them from their misery? "He has your eyes," she said softly, her anger diminishing in the face of the pure emotion emanating from Sandro. "And your smile," he replied without taking his eyes off the child. "Christine, forgive me. Forgive this man who abandoned you unknowingly. Forgive the one who believed his mother's lies while you were surviving in hell." He raised his eyes to her, and Christine saw a sincerity there that swept away years of resentment. This man kneeling before her was no longer the privileged son she had known, but a man broken by the discovery of the truth. "Come with me," he pleaded. "Both of you. Let me fix what my mother destroyed. Let me be the father Emmanuel deserves and the man you deserve." Christine looked around her, this unfinished house that had been her refuge for weeks, these cinderblock walls that had protected them from the elements, this life of misery that had become her normal. Then she looked at Sandro, this man who had shared her teenage dreams, who had promised her a bright future before everything collapsed. "How can I trust you?" she whispered. "How can I believe that you won't abandon me again?" Sandro stood up and, in a gesture that stunned his bodyguards, took off his Patek Philippe watch, worth several €100,000, and extended it to Christine. "I own nothing more precious than this watch. It belonged to my grandfather. I give it to you as a pledge of my promise. I will never leave you again. You and Emmanuel will never lack anything again." Christine looked at the sparkling watch, then at Sandro's sincere face. Slowly, very slowly, she held Emmanuel out to his father. "Take your son," she said in a whisper. "But promise me one thing, if you make us suffer again, this time, it will be final. I prefer to live on the street than to relive the hell your mother put me through." Sandro delicately took Emmanuel into his arms. The child looked at him with curiosity, then smiled spontaneously. That smile, that first contact with his son, erased 4 years of pain in an instant. Before continuing, leave a like on this video. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell so you don't miss our upcoming publications. The journey back to Sandro's villa took place in a silence heavy with emotion. Christine, sitting in the Lamborghini for the first time in her life, mechanically stroked the luxurious leather of the seats while holding Emmanuel close to her. The child, fascinated by the shiny buttons and touchscreens, cooed joyfully, unaware of the historic turn his young existence was taking. Sandro, sitting next to them, could not take his eyes off his son. Every expression, every little gesture of the child overwhelmed him. "Marcus," he suddenly said to the chauffeur, "call Chef Augustine. Have him prepare the best possible meal and contact the doctor. I want him to examine Emmanuel and Christine immediately." "Yes, sir," replied Marcus, already accustomed to his boss's sudden requests. When they arrived at the villa, Christine's eyes widened. The immense property stretched over several acres, surrounded by perfectly maintained French gardens. The central fountain, adorned with marble sculptures, created a soothing aquatic melody. Is this really your home?" she whispered, intimidated by such splendor. "It's our home now," Sandro replied firmly. "You, me, and Emmanuel." The servants, alerted by Marcus, were lined up in the entrance hall to welcome their master. Their curious glances discreetly fell on this woman in rags accompanying their billionaire boss, but their training prevented them from showing any surprise. "Madame Albertine," Sandro addressed his housekeeper. "Immediately prepare the master suite adjacent to mine. Madame Christine and her son Emmanuel will be our permanent guests. Have everything they need prepared for them." Christine felt out of place in this dream setting. Her bare, dirty feet trod on marble so polished she could see her reflection. "I can't. It's too much," she stammered. "Yes, you can," Sandro interrupted gently. "You survived hell. You can certainly tolerate a little comfort." Dr. Mbeel, the family's personal physician, arrived an hour later. His examination of Emmanuel revealed a healthy child, despite the difficult conditions of his first years. "This child has been remarkably well cared for given the circumstances," he declared to Sandro. "Madame Christine has done an extraordinary job. We will just need to catch up on a few vaccinations and improve his diet." Meanwhile, Christine discovered the bathroom adjoining their suite. The pink marble bathtub could easily accommodate 3 people. The gold faucets, the illuminated mirrors, the towels as fluffy as clouds. Everything seemed unreal to her after 4 years of washing with cold water in public fountains. When she came back down an hour later, Transformed by a hot bath and wearing a dress that Madame Albertine had urgently delivered, Sandro was speechless. He saw the Christine of their high school years again. That natural beauty that poverty had masked but not destroyed brought him instantly back to when they were 18. Dinner was served in the private dining room, more intimate than the large reception hall. Chef Augustine had prepared a feast worthy of the finest restaurants. Beef carpaccio with truffles, grilled lobster with sweet spices, wild mushroom risotto. For Emmanuel, a menu specially adapted to his age, delicate purées, fresh fruit compote, melting small vegetables. The child, seated in an improvised high chair, discovered these flavors with wonder. Each bite elicited expressions of surprise and pleasure that made his parents smile. "He has never tasted real food," Christine explained, watching her son with tenderness. "White rice, stale bread, sometimes leftovers that restaurateurs were willing to give me." "Never again," Sandro promised with fierce determination. "Never again will you lack anything." The following days radically transformed Christine and Emmanuel's life. Sandro, consumed by guilt and overflowing with paternal love, devoted himself entirely to his rediscovered family. Every morning, he cancelled his business meetings to take Emmanuel to discover the property's gardens, showing him the peacocks strutting near the rose garden, the koi carp swimming lazily in the ornamental pond. Christine, for her part, learned to navigate this world of luxury that was so foreign to her. The staff, initially wary of this stranger who had appeared out of nowhere, were quickly won over by her simplicity and sincere gratitude for every gesture. One morning, while Emmanuel was playing with handmade wooden toys that Sandro had brought from Switzerland, he took Christine by the hand. "I have a surprise for you," he said, his eyes shining with excitement. He took her to the most prestigious shopping center in the city. Christine's Beauty, a luxury hair and wig salon. "Do you remember?" he said tenderly. "In high school, you dreamed of opening your own salon. You always said that styling women was an art, that every cut revealed a personality." Christine brought her hands to her mouth, suffocated. Inside, everything was tastefully decorated. White leather armchairs, illuminated mirrors, display of natural and synthetic wigs of all colors and textures. A small area had even been set up for Emmanuel with toys and a small bed for his naps. "How did you manage?" she stammered. "I called on the best decorator. Everything is in your name, Christine. You are free to manage your salon as you see fit. I also hired an assistant trained in the best hairdressing schools in Europe to help you in the beginning." Christine walked through her salon, touching every piece of furniture, every accessory, as if to make sure she wasn't dreaming. After 4 years of struggling to survive day by day, owning something, being the owner of a business seemed as unreal as a fairy tale. "And Emmanuel?" she asked, preoccupied with the practical aspect. "Saint Michel Montessori Kindergarten, the most renowned in the region. He will start next week. He will quickly catch up and receive the education he deserves." Sandro had thought of everything. That same evening in the cozy living room of the villa, while Emmanuel slept peacefully in his new room decorated with frescoes representing savanna animals, Christine and Sandro finally found themselves alone. "I have one last thing to tell you," Sandro announced, suddenly nervous. He knelt before her, pulling a red velvet case from his pocket. Inside, a ring adorned with a 5-carat pink diamond caught the light of the chandeliers like a small sun. "Christine, will you marry me? Not out of obligation, not out of pity, but because I have loved you since we were 17 and I will love you until my last breath. Will you rebuild with me the family my mother destroyed? Promise me something," she said, reaching out her hand to him. "Promise me that no matter what happens, we will remain united. That never again will a third person be able to destroy our love." "I promise it before God and before our son," he replied solemnly, slipping the ring onto her ring finger. The wedding took place 3 months later in the city's main cathedral. Christine, radiant in a white silk dress specially created for her by a Parisian designer, walked down the aisle arm in arm with Emmanuel, dressed in a small suit. Having no remaining family, she had chosen her son to accompany her to the altar. The ceremony was magnificent but filled with authentic emotion. All the city's elite were present, but the only thing that mattered were the loving glances exchanged between the couple and the crystalline laughter of Emmanuel, who enthusiastically threw rose petals. "I take Christine as my wife, for better and for worse, in richness and in poverty, until death do us part," Sandro declared in a firm voice. "And I take Sandro as my husband, promising to trust him and to build the future of our family with him," replied Christine, her eyes sparkling with tears of happiness. When they kissed to seal their union, Emmanuel clapped his little hands, causing the assembly's tender hilarity. 5 years later, the family had grown with the birth of 2 other children. Christine managed a chain of beauty salons throughout the country, becoming a respected businesswoman. Sandro had diversified his activities, investing heavily in education and social programs. Every year, on the anniversary of their reunion, they returned to that construction site, which had since become a thriving residential neighborhood. Hand in hand, surrounded by their 3 children, they paused for a few moments in front of the house where their love was resurrected. Daddy Emmanuel, now a curious and intelligent 8-year-old boy, asked one day, "Why do you always cry when we come here?" Sandro crouched down to his son's height. "Because this is where I found the 2 most precious treasures of my life, your mom and you." Christine smiled, placing her hand on her husband's shoulder. They had learned that true love can overcome all trials, that the truth always ends up triumphing over lies, and that sometimes the most beautiful stories are born from the ashes of suffering. The setting sun gilded their smiling faces as they headed back to their villa, their children's laughter resonating in the warm evening air. The story of Sandro and Christine became legendary in the region, inspiring other couples to believe in the strength of true love. For sometimes, when all seems lost, life offers a second chance to those who know how to seize it with courage and humility. Thank you for watching this story until the end. Feel free to comment, letting us know which country you are following us from. Other very interesting stories are available on the channel, so don't hesitate to check them out.